Here we are, guys, at the Gamble Mansion.
State of Florida welcomes you to the Gamble Plantation. I'm Jesse. I'm your tour guide.
Hello, Jesse. I'm Cindy.
Cindy, I'm your cashier, your groundskeeper, your housekeeper, and the custodian.
You wear a lot of hats.
In a few minutes, we're going to go in the house, and a story will unfold
Okay.
about the people who lived here, how they lived, and how they survived. But the story starts here.
Okay.
It starts in 1835, the outbreak of the Second Seminole Indian War. Major Robert Gamble, the man who built this house, fought in that Indian War. Federal troops dispatched to the Florida Territory to convince the Seminole Indians they should be elsewhere, west of the Mississippi River. Seminoles did not take kindly to that, nor would you.
No.
They resisted ferociously. They fought a 7-year guerrilla warfare campaign successfully.
Wow.
After 7 years of war, nothing had changed. That brings us to 1842. Congress passed the Armed Occupation Act. That act said if you're a male, age 18 or older, if you possess firearms, you come to Florida.
Oh, really?
Cultivate a minimum of 5 acres, live in a permanent structure, and protect your homestead. Do that for 5 years.
And the land is yours.
The government will give you 180 acres. And the intent was obvious.
Yeah, push the Indians out.
Put more pressure on the Indians. Perhaps convince the Seminoles things can't be this bad in Oklahoma.
Now, was that around the same time as the Trail of Tears?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Robert Gamble, at this point in time, had finished his military service. He was home in Tallahassee managing his father's sugarcane plantation. Gamble said this is a good deal. He said, I'll take the deal. He loaded a boat in the Panhandle. He came down the west coast of Florida to the mouth of the Manatee River, turned upstream and came 3 miles. You're aware that's the Manatee River right there at the end of that dead-end stream. At that very point on
the river is right there. Okay, yeah.
At that very point on the water, Robert Gamble's boat hit a sandbar. He got stuck.
It's like, okay, I've landed.
And he said, I'm home. They cleared this land, impenetrable jungle from the river.
3 miles.
To this point, 15 feet above sea level, they continued to clear this land in preparation for sugarcane cultivation and to build the house. The house is constructed of a material called tabby. Tabby is a rudimentary homemade cement, equal parts of sand, water, and lime. And Gamble derived lime when he crushed and burned oyster shells.
Okay.
Lime is the glue.
Yeah.
Holds it all together. Been to St. Augustine?
Yes, and I remember about the tabby.
The Spaniards crushed and burned conch shells to get their lime.
Yes. Yeah, we were just in St. Augustine a couple weeks ago.
Gamble was an aristocrat. As an aristocrat, he built this house to impress his visitors and his neighbors. The architecture is Greek Revival. It's been modified. Gamble added these wraparound verandas and the overhanging roofs above.
Catch
He did
breezes
that
in
for
the
a
heat.
purpose, to cast a shadow on these walls. We're going to go inside. Before we do, I ask all of my guests to appreciate that Robert Gamble was one of the very first settlers on this frontier. This is not the plantation house you saw in the movies. This is not Tara. This is not Gone with the Wind. But in this place at that time, a raw, wild, hostile frontier, this is
A mansion.
a stately, proud structure. I say it still is today. Join me, please.
I've been wanting to come here for honestly about 20 years.
Glad you made it.
Took me a while.
I tell you also, this house speaks to me, speaks of survival. It speaks of self-reliance. If you choose, could speak to you.
Mm-hmm.
Come in, please. We'll bypass this staircase. You lead the way, please. First room on your left, you can go right into the parlor. As you know, Robert Gamble meant to impress you. He would impress you further by inviting you into his parlor for a cup of tea. Tea at the time was $70 a pound
Wow.
in his money, which I think explains
Now,
why these cups are so small.
is this his original tea service, or is this like
This house
From
is
the
furnished-
era.
From the era. This house
Okay.
is furnished by the Daughters of the Confederacy.
okay?
All the pieces are period correct, including that piano.
So this is what they kept their tea in?
That's a tea caddy.
Okay. And is that Mr. Gamble?
That's Mr. Gamble's father,
Oh, okay.
John Gamble. And this is a room for entertaining your guests. This is a room for conversation. It's a room where you can have some music,
Mm-hmm.
maybe a sing-along. Texting was never permitted in this room. Join me, please, in the dining room. The dining room is furnished in mahogany. Mahogany is appropriate for our climate, temperatures, and humidity. Table is set for two, including a bone dish. And a particular domestic is charged with keeping an eye on the bone dish, removing it, emptying it, cleaning it, returning it to the table as more bones accumulate during the meal. This is a portrait of Robert Gamble. That's Gamble in his later years. And the Seth Thomas clock is similar to the one that Gamble would have had.
A what clock?
Seth Thomas.
Okay.
It has an S and a T on the hands.
Oh,
And a bit of trivia, Seth Thomas liked Roman numerals, but he was never happy with 5 minus 1. All Seth Thomas clocks say this is 4.
wait a minute. You're right.
Of course I'm right.
I had to stop and think about Roman numerals. I don't use them every day.
4.
Right. IV. Because it's 1 in front of the 5. Okay.
I point out to my guests, these are not children's chairs. These chairs are for mature, full-size adults.
They were shorter.
The height of an average mature male was under 5'7". Women were much smaller. And I told another group of guests in this room that during the tour, I am available to answer all of your questions. A gentleman in that group scoffed. He said there is only one person who has all the answers.
True.
And that's my wife, he said. I will attempt to answer your questions. I may have to call my wife. We're going to Robert Gamble's office, please.
Now, are these still the original floors?
No, ma'am. The
Okay.
original floors were cedar. These floors are southern pine. Gamble built a sugar mill on this property. It was constructed of wood. He put his first harvest of sugarcane in that mill. Lightning struck the mill, burned it to the ground, destroyed his harvest, all of his efforts. He rebuilt that mill with tabby bricks. He went to England. He spent $50,000 for all the state-of-the-art, high-tech, steam-driven cane processing equipment.
And this is the cane.
Sugar cane. Robert Gamble spent another $10,000 when he acquired a total of 3,500 acres. We're in the main house here. This is his boat wharf on the river, 3 miles downstream to the Gulf of Mexico. There were 190 slaves working this plantation property. They have been memorialized by name in our museum.
So you have the names of all of his slaves?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, okay.
Robert Gamble was spending money like water.
Sounds like it.
Other people's money, his creditors, Visa, American Express, MasterCard, I'm joking. But his creditors continually ask, when are you going to pay us back? They knew the answer.
He wasn't.
They've heard the very same answer from every planter they ever dealt with. Gamble said, I'll pay you back when my crops come in. First crop went up in flames. A later crop destroyed by a hurricane. An even later crop destroyed by a second hurricane, which also killed his brother. Another crop destroyed when the temperature here fell to 27 degrees overnight. Gamble had some good harvests. One year he had a bumper crop. He had 260,000 pounds of sugar, 10,000 gallons of molasses. And that very same year, everybody had a bumper crop.
And prices plummeted.
Flooded with sugar. The price goes down, down, down. I tell all of my guests, I tell you also, my tours are guaranteed. If you're not completely satisfied with your tour, let me know afterwards. I will give you another tour.
Can you explain this candle holder?
Yeah, Gamble could stand here at his desk and make entries in his journals. If he had visitors in the room, he could light up the room, and when the visitors left, he could go back to his paperwork.
Oh, okay. That makes sense now.
We're going to go down the ramp here to the next doorway. There was a cobbler who worked on that bench. If you had a good cobbler, you got a right and a left. If he wasn't so good, you got a pair of shoes. The land around this house is clear and clean. There's no vegetation. There's no landscaping. You can see all the way to the river. And Robert Gamble wanted a line of vision. He wanted to know who, what might be approaching his house. Every evening, the sand around this house is raked smooth.
Ah, footprints.
Every morning, they would go out and look for tracks and footprints. This is part of the security system. That part of the system we added later. Gamble grew cotton.
He was able to grow cotton here?
Here it is. Not commercially, but for their own use.
Okay.
Everything you see and hear on this tour is keyed to self-reliance, bedding and clothing.
Yes.
Put the cotton on the spinning wheel, spin it into yarn.
And
Put
then
the yarn on the weasel machine. This box on the back of the weasel contains a series of mechanical springs, weights, and levers. It is calibrated to the turning of the weasel. You don't have to count, it's counting for you. 40 turns on the weasel, you have a skein of yarn.
Oh, okay.
On the 40th turn, that button popped up. And everybody said, "Pop goes the weasel."
Really? Is that where we get it from?
Let me tell you about the bathtub. Let me tell you also that Robert Gamble was a bachelor the entire time he lived here.
He was.
I want to speak for a moment about a typical scenario for a family. That tub is filled with buckets of water. Water is a resource.
Don't waste it.
All resources are precious. You cannot waste anything. And in our scenario, the master bathes, and then the mistress, and then the children in order of their age. Finally, the baby gets a bath. Finally, they throw out the bath water.
Don't throw out the
But
baby
not
with
the baby. And you don't simply throw out that bath water.
You water plants with it.
You carry the tub to the garden and you water the garden. We'll exit here. We'll be in the breezeway to your left. Come in the kitchen, please. We're living off the grid here. We have animals. We have oxen and horses and goats and pigs and sheep. We have chickens. And we have fresh eggs for breakfast every morning. Eggs, fried potatoes, 2 kinds of sausage, grits, gravy, biscuits, jam, and a pork chop.
For breakfast?
Another gentleman said, "Well, what time is breakfast? I'm coming back tomorrow."
Yeah.
We have beef, cattle, and dairy cows. We have butter, cream, and milk. No refrigerator and no ice. On top of the pie safe are 2 crock pots. You can put your perishables in these pots, cap them and seal them, tie a rope around the neck of the pot, drop it to the bottom of the water cistern. You're going to be okay for a period of time. Outside the back door is a vegetable garden: corn, potatoes, squash, carrots, peas, and beans. And on the table, fresh fruit from our orchard and grapes from our vineyard. As you know, Robert Gamble, the aristocrat, meant to impress his visitors and neighbors, but they never came in the kitchen.
No.
The floor of the kitchen was packed earth, and the walls of the kitchen were the unadorned
Tabby.
bricks. We'll exit here. To your left is the water cistern.
There was one thing over there. I wasn't sure what it was. So what is this?
It's a candlestick.
Oh, okay.
The mice love those candles.
Oh,
They
yes.
think they're Hershey bars. Gamble collected rainwater from the roof of his house. It came through this gutter, down the trough, into the shallow end of the cistern. We are at the deep end. This cistern is sloped, and water at the shallow end comes to the deep end. You can't stop it. You cannot hold it back.
So,
Robert
okay.
Gamble built a limestone wall right across the middle of his cistern, and the water came through that wall.
Filtered it?
That's the filter. At the deep end, there are 45,000 gallons of fresh water.
Wow.
You put a roof on it
Yeah.
to keep out the debris and reduce the evaporation.
Yeah. And then there's your... That's ingenious.
I'm going to chat for a few minutes. I invite you to soak up the sunshine or seek some shelter in the
I'm
shade.
seeking shelter. The sun is not my friend.
Gamble lived here, worked here, and suffered here for 12 years. And you know about his suffering, his crop failures, the floods, the fires, the hurricanes. In 1856, he said, "I give up, I'm going home." He was $190,000 in debt. A small child on her Google machine told me that's $22 million today.
Holy cow. Where was home? Pensacola with his dad?
Tallahassee.
Or, yeah, Tallahassee, okay.
The creditors offered him a deal. They said, we'll take your sugar milling machinery. We'll take your land, your livestock, your slaves, and your house. We'll call it even. He agreed. He packed up and left. It's 1856. We're going to fast forward to 1861. 5 years. 5 years of neglect and deterioration of this house. Leave your house for 5 years with no maintenance. Come back and see if you can even find it.
Yeah.
The year is 1861. The Civil War has started. These creditors, they still own the property. They know a lot about a few things. They know a little bit about a lot of things. They know the first 3 rules of real estate.
Location, location, location.
You got all 3 of them. But they said this is the perfect location. They said we're 3 miles from the Gulf of Mexico. We can run to Cuba. We can run back and forth. Did I tell you we got a war going on here? They said we're going to run to Cuba. And when the Confederate Army needs something, they call us. I know there's no phones here, but I embellish the story. They call us and we deliver. We'll run to Savannah, Charleston, Mobile, and New Orleans. Cannons, cannonballs, boots, blankets, muskets, and tents. These people are war profiteers. Probably made a lot of money. That's not important. What is important is that in 1865, Richmond fell. Lee surrendered. There's no more phone calls. That line went dead. There's no more Confederacy. And they're out of business. And this story is continued on the veranda above. Come right up, please, when you get to the top. Come down the veranda this way and go to the front of the house. I need you to play a role from here. Are you willing to do that?
Sure.
Okay. Previously at the Gamble Plantation, the war has ended. The smugglers are out of business. The man who ran this operation was a celebrated smuggler, Rhett Butler. I'm just kidding about Rhett Butler, but the man who did run this operation was Captain Archibald McNeil, the blockade runner. Archibald McNeil could go anywhere, anytime, and return safely. In 1865, with the war over, the unemployed smuggler, Captain Archibald McNeil, stepped out on this veranda, stood right here where you're standing, put his left hand in his pocket, held his camera in his right hand, just like that. Archibald McNeil. We're going to change that. We'll say Abigail, Captain Abigail. Thank you for volunteering for this mission. We're going to leave you right there for a while. We'll come back and visit with you later. Right now we're going to fast forward again from 65 to 71. 6 more years. Neglect, deterioration, and decay of this house.
I bet.
George Patton came in here and he bought everything for $3,000.
And the bank had taken all of this for his debt of $122,000?
Yeah, $190,000.
$190,000.
George Patton moved into this house, this crumbling house, with his wife. Raised 11 children in this house. His oldest daughter was named Ellen. The community that grew up here
Ellenton.
became Ellenton.
Oh, okay.
22 years later, George Patton died. Dudley Patton is the oldest son. He got the house. Dudley went off and got married, brought his bride here. He said, "Welcome home, honey."
What about his brothers and sisters? Were they, and his mom, were they still living here?
He's the oldest son. He got the house.
So did he kick his family out, or did they all live here together?
I've never been asked that question. I'll have to ask my wife.
Okay. Just curious.
He brought his bride here. He said, "Welcome home, honey." And she said,
No.
she said, "Dudley, I'm not going to live in this house. I'm not even going to go in there."
It was still that bad?
Oh, it's terrible. He said, "I understand, darling. Sweetheart. Honey bunch." He said, "I'll build you a modern house. I'll build you the Patton house."
Okay.
It's 1894. Victorian architecture. That's where you want to live. Patton vacates this house, leases it to the fertilizer company. They stock this house wall to wall and floor to ceiling with fertilizer in this Florida heat and humidity. You asked about the floors earlier.
Yeah.
I can tell you that none of the interior woodwork survived the fertilizer.
Oh, that's terrible.
That's terrible. But we're into the early 1900s and the Daughters of the Confederacy show up. They're right here on the south lawn. They're having a business meeting and a picnic. And they cannot take their eyes off of this house. This house is important. This house begs to be saved. Once again, I embellish the story and tell you the Daughters of the Confederacy had a lemonade sale. And they bought this house.
A lot of lemonade was sold.
Now, I've seen a handwritten ledger of the names of the people who were solicited for contributions and those who gave 10 cents, 15 cents, 20 cents.
Wow.
The bank kicked in $100. The daughters bought this house and donated it to the state of Florida with an agreement. Florida will save this house. This is the only surviving antebellum house on the Florida Peninsula.
Wow.
We're going to go inside. I'll help you understand why this house was so important to the Daughters of the Confederacy.
Why did the fertilizer in the house do so much damage? Was the fertilizer manure?
Sure.
Okay.
Well, it was in burlap bags, but we'll go inside.
I thought cedar was pretty indestructible.
Pardon me?
I thought cedar was pretty indestructible.
Pretty much, but it couldn't survive. Not in this humidity. As we go inside, we're going to go back to the captain and bring her with us.
Okay.
You have a mission, Captain.
I accept this mission.
Without knowing what it is.
I know, that's kind of scary.
On the wall above the mantle is a portrait of Judah Benjamin. Judah Benjamin was born in the West Indies. He was a British subject. He lived with his parents in New Orleans. Judah Benjamin was a child prodigy. When he was 12 years old, he spoke 5 languages. On his 14th birthday, his parents sent him to study law at Yale University.
On his 14th birthday?
After his law studies, he practiced in New Orleans. He was very successful and highly celebrated. He became interested in politics and was elected to the United States Senate. And during his term in the Senate, Judah Benjamin refused a nomination to the United States Supreme Court. Arguably, the best legal mind in the country. He was in his Senate seat in 1861 when the Civil War started. He immediately resigned. All Southerners resigned all of their positions. They returned home to join the Confederacy. Benjamin went to Montgomery, Alabama, where he was named Attorney General. Later promoted Secretary of War and promoted again Secretary of State. He was the number 3 person in the Confederate government. At the end of the war, the civilian government of the Confederacy were deemed to be traitors, subject to arrest and execution. They had a bounty on their heads and they were running for their lives. Judah Benjamin ran to this house, to this room. And when he got to this room, he looked out on the veranda, and standing there on the veranda, with her left hand in her pocket and holding her camera in her right hand, was the captain,
Abigail.
right where we left her. Benjamin had to get out of the country and he needed a smuggler. He knew he would be safe in England. England sympathized with the Confederacy throughout the war. My English visitors tell me, of course they say, we needed the cotton.
Ah.
And Benjamin was here for about 1 month, conspiring with the captain on an escape plan. The Tampa Tribune reported, Yankees outwitted by a Florida sea captain aiding Confederate official to escape to the Bahamas. From the Bahamas to Nassau, to Havana, to St. Thomas. From St. Thomas to England. And this is Judah Benjamin in his white powdered wig, practicing law in England, again highly celebrated and appointed Queen Victoria's counsel.
Now, did England accept his law degree from Yale, or did he have to go study law over there again?
He did.
Okay.
He practiced law in England for 20 years. He retired to Paris, died in Paris, he's buried in Paris. This is the Judah Benjamin Memorial.
Oh,
He is the reason the Daughters of the Confederacy were committed to save this house. Please watch your step on this raised threshold. This is the only room in the house that features indoor toilet facilities. And this is the honey pot sitting on top of the thunder box. And I take no questions, please, at this juncture of the tour.
Why not?
This is Robert Gamble on the wall between the windows. Not to be confused with General Robert E. Lee above the mantel. This room also features a rope bed. This mattress is supported by ropes. Over time, these ropes stretch, the mattress sags, it becomes very uncomfortable. But you can insert a lever in this spindle.
And twist?
This spindle rotates. As it rotates, the ropes tighten on these knobs. And on this bedpost are a series of markings where you can dial in your sleep number. Okay, I'm just kidding about the numbers. But when the ropes are tight, you can lock this spindle in place.
Yes.
And say to the master, sleep tight.
Don't let the bed bugs bite.
If you wake up in the night and you have a chill, roll off an extra blanket. Next morning, roll it back up out of the way.
Well, that's convenient.
Be extra careful, please, going down to the next level. I came in this room last week with another group of guests. Included in that group was a young lady. I judged her to be maybe 5 years old. But when I asked if anybody had any questions, she raised her hand. And she asked me, she said, Jesse, were you and Robert Gamble really good friends?
No filter.
This is assumed to be the ladies' dressing room. We came through 2 bedrooms here. There's more bedrooms outside this door. And I think of this as the walk-in closet.
Yes.
I told you at the front door, this house speaks to me. I hope it spoke to you. I sincerely appreciate your kind attention. I salute you. I hope you enjoyed the tour. I hope you have a good rest of the day.
It's very informative. Thank you.
We'll exit here, please. To your right is the stairway we came.
This was a picture of the mansion before it was restored. There's the ruins of the sugar mill and the patent house.
I will point out to you the names of the 190 slaves who worked this.
Oh, yes.
Property.
Wow. Thank you. I see some of them just have first names. Okay, so here's Tabby. So this is what the house is made of. And these are kind of clay bricks. Here are some of the tools they used to cut the wood. That's a carpet bag. So this was a picture of the house. As you can see, it had not been restored. Florida sun does a lot of damage. I guess the house was also damaged in the 1926 hurricane. Oh, so here's some pictures. So here's 1902, 1934, 1950. That looks like maybe ivy or something all over the place. Gamble Mansion and Plantation. At the close of the Seminole War in 1842, this frontier was open to settlement. Major Robert Gamble and other sugar planters soon located along the rich Manatee River Valley, and by 1845 a dozen plantations were producing for the New Orleans market. The Gamble Mansion, built principally of native materials between 1845 and 50, is an outstanding example of an antebellum construction and stands today as a monument to pioneer ingenuity and craftsmanship. The plantation included 3,500 acres, numerous outbuildings, slave quarters, and a wharf from which sugar and molasses were shipped by schooner and steamboat.